Okay, so while I have this on my mind, and I just actually got out of therapy, so it's fresh on my mind. But um, I guess I'll start out by saying this. It's something that my mom always told us growing up, and she even tells my son. Something that I find to be very valid. Wisdom, knowledge, whatever you want to call it. And it's this: you are free to choose. Like, you are free to make whatever choice that you want to make. You are. But you are not free from the consequences of what you choose. Um, so let me just put it this way in case anyone wants to hang it up as a quote. And it's this: you are free to make whatever choice that you want to make, but you are not free from the consequences of those actions, or in a lot of cases, inactions. And I did, a video not too long ago where I talked about, that inaction is an action. It is an action. It's a choice. Like, if you choose to not get involved, or to not do something, or to avoid something, you are still making a choice. So therefore, it is still an action. Taking in or being inactive is still active. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're still it's still an action. And so, like, in either situation, you're free to choose to act or to not act. And regardless of whatever you choose to do, you are going to have consequences from that. And they may be positive and they may be negative depending on the nature of whatever choice that you make. And it's just like, and this is another thing that I guess is kind of goes along with it, that is something that I've wanted to, or something that's, kind of heavy on my spirit, or whatever you want to call it, like heavy, like is weighing on me, is, the consequences of being an avoider, of avoidance, of, you know, pretending that your problems aren't there, or distracting yourself by, ignoring these problems and avoiding them, and then thinking that they're just magically going to go away, and it doesn't. Avoiding your problems, first of all, doesn't make them go away. Like, logically, that doesn't even make sense. So let's just go ahead and start there. Avoiding problems does not make them go away. in any situation, like, it's not going to go away just because you ignore it. And here's the kicker: normally, and most of the time, avoiding your problems actually makes them worse in the long run. Like, it makes the consequences worse than what they would have been. Like, it's a buildup of, okay, I avoid this problem, so that adds to, the actual problem itself, because I've avoided doing X, Y, and Z to, fix this problem or face this problem or whatever. And so then that leads into the next problem. So I have to avoid that one and the one before, so then it compounds and compounds and compounds until you are finally, and this will happen, you are finally faced with a situation in which avoiding it is unavoidable. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but you will finally be in a situation where you have avoided your problems for so long that you have faced something that is unavoidable. Like, that is what's going to happen. And it is going to be really, really bad. And it is going to, more than likely be something that is, like, probably at the end of the day, depending on the nature of it and how long you've avoided it, or how well you have avoided it, and the compounding of that, is probably going to be one of those things, looking back, that was one of the hardest things that you've ever had to go through. Or, it will stand out in your mind as a very difficult thing that you had to deal with or face in your life. I mean, honestly and truly, like, if it's a serious enough thing, and you have the ability in your brain to avoid it for that long, then when you finally face the unavoidable consequence of avoiding your problems, it's going to be it's going to be excruciating. It's going to be extremely difficult. It is going to break you down. And I can say this from experience and from watching others, and sadly I'm having to watch it happen with someone right now. And it's sad, but at the same time, and this is crazy for me because I'm like a bleeding empath. Like, I don't know if there's anybody out there who's as empathetic as I am. Like, I'm overly empathetic sometimes. Like, I cause myself so much self-harm from the amount of empathy that I have. And in this situation, like, I really and truly at this point in time don't feel bad for them at all. Like, I don't look at them and hurt for them, or like feel bad, or anything, or even feel the need to really comfort them in this situation, because like where it's at is like it's absolutely ridiculous that we're at this point, or that you are, and it didn't have to get here, and now we're here, and it is extremely difficult for you. And I'm just seeing it as like, hopefully this is a big learning curve for you. Like, that is what I hope for. And it's just, and I hate to be the person to say like it's what you get, but I mean, it is. Like, I understand that people make mistakes in life. So like, if someone makes a mistake or a series of mistakes, that cause, a consequence, I will feel empathy for that person, because we all make mistakes, everyone does. So I do feel empathy, because I know that no one's perfect and we're going to make mistakes, and then there's going to be consequences for those mistakes, and I feel bad. But this is one of those things where, like, it should not have ever gotten to this point, like, this is past the point of making mistakes. This is, like, a combination of being surrounded by people that enable you to avoid your problems, and the belief that they're just going to magically go away, or that you're going to find a quick fix solution, or whatever the case, that makes it possible for you to avoid for as long as you do. And this isn't just about mistakes. This is about you being unwilling to face your own problems and act like an adult. And now, this person is, they're they're going through it. They are really going through it, and I don't feel bad. And that is crazy for me. Like, that is like that is unheard of for someone like me. But it's just the case. Like, you cannot avoid your problems and expect them to go away. They're not going to. They're 100% not going to go away. Like me avoiding my problems through using drugs and other things to ease my conscience, or to help me avoid those problems and stuff like that, ended me up in prison for 4.5 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did 4.5 years behind bars by avoiding my problems, by getting high and like other things. So like, there are consequences. And like I said, if you allow like those, like avoiding those things, like that compounds over time until the consequence is really, really great. Like, that is one of the main reasons why now, like when it comes to problems, like, I don't even know honestly if I could say that I have the, natural reaction, or, whatever, if I have the natural instinct to avoid and then overcome it, or if, like, I want to say honestly that the idea of avoiding it doesn't even like cross my mind or come up as an option to me. Like at this point in my life, like I am not going to avoid like stuff like this, just because I know from experience that it doesn't work and that it makes things worse. And it's like I can't afford for anything in my life to be worse or get worse, you know? So like if there's a problem, like I am going to face it and I'm going to do whatever I can to fix it. And to be completely honest, in a lot of situations, like I face the problem, I try to find a solution and can't fucking find one. I'm in a situation now where, you know, I am like actively now and really truly putting in so much effort to try to fix this problem, and I still have not been able to. I still have not reached a solution that has worked, but I firmly believe that by me at least facing it and taking the actions to at least try is, I hope and believe that that is what's going to save me from, you know, like later on down the road having to face like a very hard circumstance. You know, I hope that like, and I'm gonna look this up after, but I hope that in psychology there is something that backs this up, that is, even if you don't find a solution to the problem, if you face it and actively try to work on it, then you will essentially, if nothing else, greatly lower, you know, the ultimate consequence, or the you know, the ending, you know, the race is over for this certain situation, and you know the consequences are not as bad or hard to handle. I'm going to look that up because I need to know if that's true, because I firmly believe that I need that to be true, because like you just can't avoid these problems. Like you have to face them, you do, and you have to do whatever it is within your power, you know, to try to fix these problems, you know. And like I don't always do it perfect, I don't always put in the effort that it would take to find the solution to these problems, but I don't avoid them. Like that's something that I don't do. I don't pretend that it's not there. I don't find ways to distract myself, you know, for the most part, to avoid, you know, the negative feelings associated with these problems. You know, like I acknowledge it. I see it for what it is. You know, I know at least to some extent what I need to do in order to fix it. You know, the execution of it is normally not, you know, what I had planned or what could essentially solve the actual problem. So, you know, like the actually following through of the plan or whatever doesn't always go as planned, but I actively try and I most definitely face it. And so I guess that's my lesson for the day, which is that you are free to make any choice that you want to make, but you are not free from the consequences of those choices. You absolutely are not. There's never going to be a situation in which you make a choice, but you are exempt from the consequence of that choice. And this doesn't even have to be bad. I mean, this is the whole thing of like where karma comes in, you know, and I'm big on karma because I'm big on things that are biblically backed, you know, like that are backed by scripture. And this one is, I mean, it's not called karma in scripture, but it's called reaping what you sow. You know, it says, you know, God is not mocked. For what a man sows, uh, for that he will also reap. Like whatever you sow, you will reap the fruits of that. Whatever seed that you plant, like the plant that grows from that is a direct result of whatever seed that you planted, whatever, whether it be good or bad, you know. And so that's where karma comes into play. So like you could have a life of positive consequences if you're always making positive choices, you know. So it's like, and those are good consequences, you know, that obviously you're glad that they exist. But you know, like there's also the bad ones that are associated with it, and or with certain, you know, choices or lack thereof. I think sometimes we overlook the importance of, like, I'm trying to think of how to say this the way I want to say it, like the effect of things that involve, like, okay, instead of me trying to find like a fancy way to say this, I'm gonna say it like this. Like, for failure, I'm big on embracing failure, because I feel like, and I firmly believe, that knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. Like, I find for both of those to be equal. So, like, I don't like this idea that failure is a bad thing, or if failure is a bad thing, then we need to have a word that kind of comes before that. Like, there's a sequence that leads to failure, but like there's some type of like wiggle room, or like some type of area from, like deciding to do things this way, and then there's this like consequence box that is called whatever you want to call it, and then there's failure, which can be negative. But I don't like the idea that failure is always considered to be negative, because I don't feel that it is. Like, I guarantee you that if you were to ask anybody in history that has like a name that, will never die and everyone knows, like, Thomas Edison, or uh, the Wright brothers, or what's her name, Marie Curie, who discovered radiation, or Alexander Graham Bell, isn't that his name, the one who did the telephone and stuff like that. Like, do you not think that those people failed over and over and over and over again until they finally figured out what it was that worked? Do you not think that from every failure that they pushed through, that helped them in the next thing that they tried? Because guess what? They're like, okay, I did this. I know it's not because of this, because I know that this works, because I've seen that. And I know that this works. Okay, well, what didn't work here? Okay, so now I know that I don't need to do this certain thing. Like, I know for a fact, like, let me go to my little checklist of things and remember that on my next experiment, the next time that I test this out, that I don't do this. Like, that's important. Like, knowing what not to do. Like, in my situation, like, very much so, it's like I a lot of times didn't know what I was doing, but I kind of knew like what I shouldn't be doing, and did it anyways, and ended up with the consequences of that. And I feel like that goes along, in the same sense of like inaction. Like, we look at it as like, oh, we're just neutral, or we're not doing anything, or we're not, we're not adding to the situation, or whatever. Like, we're avoiding it, or refusing to get involved in it, or whatever, and we're taking, and so we're not taking action, but that actually leads to a consequence as well. Like that, like, we need to realize that, like, the opposite of some of these things, like, that we see as like, good or bad or whatever. Like, we're always focusing on like what is being done, like, is like, in the lack of failure would be success. So we're always focusing on what this person did in order to succeed, or in a situation where that it's bad, we're always looking at the choices that someone made that led to whatever bad consequence that there was. But there's the opposite end of that, which is, like, what this person, did wrong, that also created the positive outcome of what they did right to reach whatever, whatever really good positive ending that they reached. Not knowing, or knowing what not to do, also aided very much in getting them to the ending of creating something good or something good coming out of it. And it's the same on the opposite end, which is with inaction. You know what I'm saying? We're always looking at the choices that someone makes to get to the point where, you know, something really bad happens, but we're not thinking about the inactions also that led to that. You know, like trying to, I don't know the word that you would consider that to be. Like I'm trying to increase my vocabulary of like what these like terms are. Like my brain wants to say paradox, but I don't think that's right. Either way, I'm gonna figure that out after this video too. But like we need to focus on, or at least add more weight to the things that we don't. You know, we're looking at like actions and forgetting to look at inactions, or we're looking at what someone did right instead of also realizing what they did wrong to help them learn what to do right. You know, like, and those are big things that are overlooked. And you know, I think it's important to like address that, you know. And that's why, you know, one of my biggest things, probably in my top 3, you know, biggest like words of wisdom to live by is, you know, to embrace failure. Like there needs to be a word that's within that window of like making the choice or doing it this way and your outcome. There needs to be a window that, or a word that we use that comes before we get to failure, because I don't consider that area to be failure. Like I don't consider that to be a negative thing. Like failure is looked at in a negative sense. It's a negative term, like is viewed negatively, and I don't think that it always should be. If you learn from like not succeeding in a certain thing, or made a choice and you didn't succeed there, I don't always find it to be failure. I don't always think that it's failure if you learn from it. If you learn from it, if you learn that, okay, hey, like I've evaluated this whole situation and I'm pretty sure this is the issue, and this is why I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. So now I've pinpointed what not to do. So that aids me moving forward. I know for a fact that I need to avoid doing this if I want to reach the point of success, because this does not work, or this is causing a problem, or this is causing some type of chain reactions that is, you know, keeping my end result from happening the way that I want it to, you know. And it's a learning area that's very important, you know. Like knowing what not to do is just as important as knowing what to do. I don't care what no one says, it is. They are equal. And it's the same thing with action and inaction. Those things also are equal. I know it doesn't seem like it, they seem like opposites, but in all reality, I mean, I guess me holding multiple truths, you know, action and inaction are essentially opposites, but they're also equals, if that makes sense. I know that probably went over a lot of people's heads, but they're also equal too, because inaction can also cause just as bad of consequences as actions. And we need to remember things like that. Like we're overlooking a very important part of, you know, reaching success or dealing with consequences of action or inaction, or, you know, facing problems and avoiding them. You know, like there's, both play a major part. Both of them do. And so, look, I'm going to say it again because I started it this way, and so I'm going to end it on this. But let me just reiterate again. Embrace failure. That's it. 2 words, period. Embrace failure. Let's just keep that in mind. But the main part, and I'm going to repeat this again for the people in the back, you are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequences of those choices. And let me add to it my own little kicker, which is you are free to not take action, but you are not free from the consequences of not taking those actions. That's it.